Hey, what's up? Doug Cunnington here from Niche Site Project. This is the webinar, the free workshop on scaling content for authority sites and niche sites. With any luck, you can hear me and the microphone's working and the video's working. I hope so. I see we have a handful of people in. Please let me know in the chat if you are able to hear me. I see Yath. Santiago is on as well. I'm going to try to make sure my voice holds up. So I'm feeling better if people are, if you watch the channel and stuff, I'm feeling better than I was the last few weeks, which is great. But, I don't talk a ton, so I have to protect my voice. All right, cool. People say that you can't hear me. Please let me know, number one, where you're from, and then if it's your first time attending as well. Always interested. And I think we may have a lot of people on, so I'm going to try and keep up with the chat and everything, but we'll see how it goes. We have Ken, we have Latif, we have Zane. What's up? Enrique, Arun, Dana. People can hear me. Quincy, Barbie. Barbie made it on. Fantastic. I answered your questions, Barbie, in the Facebook group as well. Just to let you know, Dan's on. Alejandra, Dan's from the Netherlands. Yath is from India. Salim, by the way, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. I tried my best to, pronounce things phonetically, but sometimes there's a lot of syllables and it's really hard for me. So I try my best. All right. We have Latif in Singapore. It's late there, 1 a.m. Thanks for staying up. We have Enrique from Spain. Dana, it's your first time on from Minnesota. Probably a little chilly there as well. I'm in Montana. Bozeman, Montana. Marcel from Spain. We have Barbie from Jordan. Not your first time. Awesome. Cody. And we have Duke made it on as well. On Alejandra. It's not your first webinar. You're close to Montreal. Tony from Tulsa. And we do have a ton of people. I am going to try and keep up. We have Jessica, first time attending. Oh, Jessica, what's up? I think I saw you in the Facebook group. We have John from Albuquerque. Nice. Gatish, Salim, Ken. All right. Zane from Seattle. Nice. Great town. Cody from Tulsa, I've driven through there, I think, once. Wong from Malaysia. Okay, we have a bunch of people from all over the place. And cool. Quincy from Texas. We have, and I may have to skip some of the people just because there are so darn many. Thank you, everyone, for mentioning, and I appreciate you attending. This is the webinar on scaling content. We'll get rolling in a second. I know there's a lot of people that have attended before. I do have my normal intro that I go through just to, I could just tell you to establish credibility, because if you don't know who I am, you may not believe what I say. So I just want to tell a little bit of my story, and I understand if you have heard the story before. But I will mention a couple things when we're going through this webinar, right? So I encourage you to, if you have Facebook open or some other social media or other distractions, turn that stuff off and pay attention. I encourage you to get out a notebook or some sort of piece of paper that's not electronic. I always use these like legal pads here because they're so cheap, and you could just write and take notes freely. So get out a legal pad or some kind of notebook or something. Try to ignore my dog scratching over there. Hey, Georgie. So she is my desk mate here, and occasionally she, especially when I'm doing these live streams, she tends to make her collar make noise. Okay. So anyway, pay attention, especially when we get into the core material. I'll get everyone's attention again and say, hey, pay attention. I'm done with the intro part. So, all right. And let's see here. I'm just trying to go through. We got Steve from Portland. And Kit from India, and Sir Can from Germany. Jeff's first time live. All right, fantastic. Thanks, everyone. More people are going to be filtering in. One quick piece of housekeeping. The connection should be solid. I'm wired to my router. I have fiber to my house. I've worked to make sure my connection is good, but that doesn't always mean it's going to hold up awesome. So if it freezes, if the video freezes, if you stop being able to hear me or something weird happens, refresh your stream. I think there may be a button to just refresh. Try it on your end. Also, let us know in the chat. Other people may say, hey, I'm having trouble too, or everything went black, or they may say it's fine for me. Obviously, there's people from all over the world on, and we're very far apart. We're thousands of miles apart, and there's oceans in between us and all that stuff. So the connections could be a little bad at times. So just be patient, refresh it if you can. Do let me know if there are issues so I can somehow troubleshoot, although oftentimes there's not a damn thing I could do, to be honest with you. So, all right. Thanks everyone for hopping on. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the presentation, even though I know we're going to have people joining in. And I will mention one other thing as I'm pulling up the presentation. The recording, right? So I'm recording this. If you got the link to get here, you should get an email in a few hours after everything's rendered. So, I mean, I want you to attend live and pay attention, but if for some reason you can't, you can check out the replay later. You should get a link and, be able to watch it at your leisure if you can attend. Sometimes these things go long and that sort of thing. All right. So again, this is how to hire writers for niche sites and authority sites without stress. And I'm going to go deep into sort of like scaling and, I guess publishing a lot of stuff. I always mention the sound check stuff because I once did a full presentation and no one could hear me because I assumed that people could hear me. So I always put it in as a reminder. Who am I? I'm Doug Cunnington. I'm the founder of Niche Site Project. That is a picture of my dad and I and my late dog there, Brody. So we're at Old Faithful, which is in Yellowstone National Park. Happens to be like from where I'm sitting now to where we were standing there. That's probably like a 3-hour drive, something like that. So it's pretty cool to have like a big national park like that close by. And I have been featured or quoted on several different sites. Maybe it's a guest post. Maybe they cited some piece of work. I'm sure you recognize some of the names there. And I just, I've been around a little while, been blogging since 2013. And I've had my YouTube channel, which a lot of people have seen for about a year or so in a serious way. So I always talk about this timeline here, and I want to emphasize a couple things. A lot of people, a lot of stories that you see, a lot of the case studies you see, they're the highlight reel of what people want you to see. And I want to make sure everyone's really clear. I've had some ups and downs. This should look like a roller coaster because it was one. This is over the period of almost 4 years, almost 5 years, I guess, 4.5 or so. And basically what we have here is when I first heard about niche sites in April of 2013, I literally didn't know about niche sites before that. And I don't know. I didn't realize people could make money online. I didn't know anything about WordPress or anything like that. And I took action quickly. I actually found about all this stuff through the Smart Passive Income podcast. Let me know in the chat, like if you are familiar with the Smart Passive Income podcast or the blog or anything like that. Pat Flynn, that's how I got introduced to all this stuff. And within a few weeks, right? Within about a month or so, I launched my first site, and I found this whole world of internet marketing and stuff. So Zane says, SPI got you started. Heather, you love Pat Flynn and SPI as well. Yeah, really, Pat Flynn's awesome. He's a really remarkable man. And, it's just amazing what he's been able to put together. So anyway, I launched my sites They were kind of flops, right? My first few sites, like a lot of people, you'll let me know if you've done this. I found out about this stuff and then I launched like 5 sites within a few weeks and I had no idea what I was doing. And I just thought, hey, I better lock down these domains before someone else gets it. Of course, no one got it because they were terrible ideas. But I learned my lesson and I now work on fewer projects. So anyway, I do want to point out within, I guess, the first year, I launched an Amazon affiliate site and I made like $6,000 in December of 2013, which was crazy. And I thought, hey, I'm going to quit my job. It's going to be fantastic. And next thing I know, within a month of that great month, my site was penalized. I was doing private blog networks, gray hat techniques, and that's just what people were doing back then. Actually, even Pat Flynn, I was learning from him, and he was doing these link wheels and link pyramids, and that's just the common practice at the time. He doesn't do that anymore, and I don't do it anymore either. So anyway, I lost that site through a penalty. I launched 5 more in 2014. Those sites got penalized after I continued to do the same thing. And at that point, I sort of learned my lesson. As we fast forward this low point, so I got laid off from my job. I used to be a project manager. Well, I'm still a project manager, a PMP. And I worked at a software company doing project management. Turns out a lot of the people that attend these things happen to do some sort of software or IT work or something like that. So also happen to, just let me know if you happen to be an IT person. And as we fast forward, my site started doing better. I'm going to actually show you some screenshots of earnings from the last couple years so you can get a reference point. And as we fast forward, in December of 2016, my wife got laid off from her job just before Christmas. So that was a bummer. But my niche site made like $15,000. And then later in June of 2017, my business partner and I sold, we partnered on this one site and we sold a site for $235,000, which is crazy for me to even say it out loud at this point in time. And I've had several months to digest that fact. So, and I mean, sure enough, it was a simple niche site, a review site like we're going to talk about today. And some of the techniques, we're going to go deep into sort of how we manage some of the specific team structures and stuff like that. Quick reminder. The Q&A is at the end. So you can ask questions throughout, but it may be a little difficult for me to see the questions later on, depending on how much is going on in the chat. So Q&A is at the end. I do encourage you to pull out a notebook, write down your questions as we're going through, and then type them in at the end, just so it's a little easier to answer them at that point. So this is the part where you should pay attention. If you tuned out for the intro or something like that, we're getting into the material now. So get out your notebook, turn off your distractions, and let's get to it. So this is a way to scale content for niche and authority sites. It should transfer over to any other sort of content type structure. And if you're creative, if you've built teams before, you should be able to transfer these ideas from content to whatever you want. Maybe it's outreach, maybe it's, some other keyword research exercise or something like that. So this is what we're going to go over. You're going to learn when you should scale. I'm going to show you a lean content team and basically an org chart for it. So it's modular, and it's not like lean as in agile. It's just lean as in bare minimum. In a lot of ways, I just keep things simple. We're going to go over that again and again. I'll show you the checklist that my content manager and my editor use. So it's really the same role. I'll get into that in a second, but I'll show you exactly what they did. It's really a common question, and it's frankly pretty simple, but I'll show you exactly what they did. And the one thing that saved me about 24,360 minutes in a year. So I actually went and calculated, and I'll tell you more about how I calculated that when we get to it. So this is what you'll learn, and I hope you enjoy it. So the goal here is really important. So we're not just publishing content for the sake of publishing content. You have to have a goal. And in this case, it was to increase revenue, right? So in a lot of ways, the bottom line should be that you're trying to increase revenue. You're trying to get an ROI on your dollar. And I will share with you, I'm not sure if I wrote it specifically. I think I get to it in a second, but you have to have a positive ROI if you're going to make an investment in something, right? Otherwise, you're just throwing money away, and it's a hobby, not a business, and it's not a venture that you're going to make money on. So increasing revenue was indeed the point here, as it should be for such an exercise. So when I looked at what I wanted to do, it was publish keyword golden ratio content. And if you're not familiar with the keyword golden ratio, I'll quickly go over it, but you should watch some other videos on my YouTube channel. If you just Google keyword golden ratio, you should find, me presenting this concept. It's a way to find the supply and demand of certain keywords. They're long tail keywords, often with low search volumes under 250, and you use an advanced Google search command called all in title, and you manually have to find these keywords. That's why it works, because it's manual and it's not a thing that people can automate quickly. All right. So my goal was to publish keyword golden ratio content. So let's get into some of the details here and the results. Otherwise, my point about the ROI kind of goes away. So number one, in January of 2016, this site made about $100. And then by the end of the year, it made $14,819 in December. And here is the screenshot for that. So I know it's a little bit small, but you could kind of get the idea. You can see that it starts very low here. The scale is so small, you can't even see the $100. I think around June, it was roughly $1,000 or so. And I was publishing content in June through October, right? So June through October, and it obviously grew. It continued to grow after I stopped publishing content, because these things take time to rank sometimes, right? So the next thing that's interesting, and I haven't shared this yet, but this site made $70,000 in 2017. So for, depending on, who you are and, how big your family is and where you live and all that, 70,000 may be a whole lot of money, or it could be not that much. It could be interesting, but not that much. It all depends on your reference point. For me, 70,000 is a nice chunk of change, right? For a relatively passive site. And here is the screenshot for that. So this is a little bit cleaner with the scale, and you could actually see that that's a decent amount of money. So hopefully I have your attention with the results here. And, in fact, I hire all the writers from Upwork. So I know a lot of people were challenging me on, how much I pay, and I'm going to give you the details here, but basically I'm paying a reasonable amount for, a reasonable amount of words. I pay about $14 or $15 on average for 1,000 words. One of the key things is it's not a highly skilled writer. So I know Barbie has mentioned to me in a couple of the Facebook messages, like, basically, if you need someone skilled, you're going to have to pay a little bit more, depending on details in your job posting and some other stuff. You may have, an easier time hiring people for cheaper or more expensive, right? So everyone has to find their own sweet spot for their own working style and all that stuff. This is perfect for me. I've hired probably at least dozens. I'm not sure if it's into the hundreds, but at least dozens of different writers. Some of them work out, some of them do not. There's waste in the system and you have to account for it. Latif says you could vouch for Upwork as well. And no, I don't hire anyone from any writers from Fiverr. Yeah. And next, if people are good, I'll pay them more, right? So this is a simple supply and demand situation. And if they're good, I'll pay them a little bit more. If they're bad, then I stop working with them. So you have to, have that sort of mindset. You shouldn't have to negotiate for, quality. That should be there from the beginning. For the content manager and editor role, so they do sort of both. I'll get into details later. I pay anywhere between $10 and $20 an hour, depending on experience, how long I've worked with them, and so on. Basically, if you pay more money, oftentimes you'll get better results, a better work ethic, and that sort of thing. I want to note that it takes the content manager about an hour to edit one post. So that's an interesting point right there. So it takes them about 1 hour to do the things that I need them to do. Your mileage may vary on that. One important thing is when to scale. And generally, it's later than you think. So a lot of times we'll hear case studies from our role models about scaling, and we think we need to scale, right? Typically, our role models are years ahead of us, right? So I mentioned Pat Flynn before. He's had just his podcast for like 9 years or something like that. I'm not even 100% sure. And he's been blogging for like almost a decade. I could have the years off a little bit. If he's been blogging for a decade, then maybe his podcast has only been out for like 8 years or something. So when we hear people talking about what they're working on currently and the challenges they have and what they're implementing and the great success that they're having, and we're just starting and they're on day, 1,000 and we're on day 100 or so, and we're trying to implement that stuff that they're doing on day 1,000, we're going to have issues. So not only are we probably not mentally prepared to handle what's going on and what they're working on, when we run into issues, we're going to be totally confused. And the other part is when we try it and it doesn't work, we're going to be super discouraged, but we may not see all the background stuff that's happening, all these struggles. Again, remember that success roller coaster that I showed you? Well, that is a real, thing. I had some down points, and I will tell you about those, where a lot of times people will just tell you all their highlight reel. Like if you are just seeing the highlight reel and you're trying to do that stuff, you may not see the 3 times they tried something and they failed. And now they figured out the mistakes and now they're doing better. So basically, scale later than you think, and don't try and scale on day 30 when you should scale on day like 300. So don't get ahead of yourself. Basically, your site should have traffic and revenue already. So don't try like build a big team if you're still trying to get traffic on your site. You're going to have issues. So if you don't have traffic on your site yet, you probably need to focus on the basics: keyword research, outreach, getting links, just promoting your site in general. Maybe you really like social media and you need to build a social media presence. I'm not sure what you're working on specifically, but if you are adopting a different model, then, plan accordingly. Now, if you don't have the budget to scale either, then you should wait. Don't scale before you could afford it. Don't go into debt to do this stuff just because, you can put it on credit cards. I'm very much a believer in bootstrapping and waiting until you could reinvest. In fact, I will mention that I made hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and I was reinvesting like hundreds and hundreds of dollars from this specific website. And I was reinvesting those earnings from, the previous 6 months or so into the first set of content. So it was always reinvesting. It was always ROI positive, even though I did have just capital to invest if I wanted to. I really wanted to do this organically and grow slowly. So, and that brings me to the point about growing slowly. So if you haven't built a team before, like for example, your day job, then you should start slow. You'll want to grow the team slowly. And probably the biggest mistake you can make after you watch this is if you go and try to build a team quickly before you really know how to manage them. So the interesting thing is when you start building a team, you're going to be a little bit more stressed out. And when you're hiring people, you're probably trying to reduce your stress, reduce the amount of work. And it's usually easier to just hire people than it is to actually manage them. So actually, I'm just curious, in the audience here, let me know if you've managed people at your day job or otherwise, say, more than 2 or 3 people. Just curious to see the experience level as far as management goes. Just curious. So the other part is you have to remember that some things are going to go wrong. Your plan is going to get disrupted. It's going to get crushed by some unexpected event. Maybe a VA disappears and they don't actually do the work. Now, if you have built a team in a corporate setting, and I have, by the way, you probably realize that building a team is going to create a lot of problems, probably faster than it's going to solve them. So my big sort of reference point is I helped grow a team from about 40 to over 100. And I helped onboard like new employees. I developed like the onboarding document and basically improve it. And each person that you hire creates another communication channel because, you could talk to that person, but they could also talk to each other depending on how the organization is built. So even if you're the main point of contact and the team members don't talk to each other, you still have to interface with each one. So for example, if you try and hire like 5 writers or so, and each writer has, say, 2 questions per day, and they just send an email, well, that's like 10 emails additional that you're going to get per day, and you have to answer each one. So I think you can see the sort of issues that may arise if you just try and hire people too fast. So grow slowly. All right. And people did mention Arun has a team of 3. Gary has managed up to 50 people. Tim has a hard time managing the sock drawer. Yeah, depending on where you live, you may have a lot of socks. And Gareth mentions you managed 3 people in a previous role. Jessica managing kids. That could be a lot of work, of course. And then Marcel has 75, or at one point had 75 employees. John was a sales manager, is a sales manager. And Yath has a group of 5. Cool. So a decent amount of experience out there. So as I mentioned, you have like more communication channels as you grow the organization. So keep that in mind and grow slow. Now, don't fear, I'm going to tell you exactly how I grew the team up over the span of several weeks. I'll kind of sort of deconstruct how I did it and mention actual like number of people and a guideline. So the org chart. So here is just sort of the simple org chart. And I generally favor simplicity over making something complex. And you could have a deep org chart with like more managers and stuff if you wanted to delegate tasks. But when I looked at it personally, that would actually have, that was my old job, right? A hierarchy, multiple managers in a team. And I didn't want to create, that sort of structure. So I just opted for a simple flat organization. So there are 2 main roles here, aside from myself, the PM. So I'm doing the PM work, but I hire for 2 roles. That's the writer, the content manager. They both report to me, and I've had as many as like 3 content managers and 12 writers or so at once. And you can tell this is modular. I'm going to go a little deeper into it, but it's modular. You can recreate this sort of structure over and over again and have multiple, I guess, pods, if you want to call them that. And you can just have everyone report to you and, just manage things with spreadsheets. That's kind of what I usually do. Okay. The good part about this model is it can grow really fast if needed. And then you could also just disband the structure just as quickly. So that is the benefit of working with freelancers. You have the ability to, grow quickly or just end the project whenever you're finished. And that's just the way it goes. So phase one, keeping it simple, growing slow. So this is the team. You hire one writer and you yourself are doing the project management, which is relatively simple. And then you're doing the content management too. So by the way, I'll just keep referring to it as a content manager. That includes the editing work too. Again, I'm going to go over the role at the end and just give you the list of items that the content manager worked on. So this is, a time frame of 1 week or so, right? So you can go to Upwork, you post a job, you hire someone, you have them write a few articles, you get those articles, edit them, draft them in WordPress, do the stuff, and then you're good to go. Okay, so that's week 1. Over the next 2 weeks, you could hire another writer or 2. Okay, so you could hire another writer or 2. You'll notice here that there is a content manager role with this gray box. The content manager is a new role here, and that is a writer, the original writer that I've promoted. So the writer did a good job. And I asked the writer, hey, do you want to do something a little more interesting? You've been writing a few articles. I like what you're doing. You understand the voice and you're doing a good job. I'll pay you by the hour. It's a little bit different. And if so, then I'll promote them to the content manager role and I'll hire 2 new writers. Same way I hired the other writer. So with a trial job. And I see Bing is asking if there's a replay. Yep, there's a replay. By the way, if you're joining late, if you have any issues with the connection, hit refresh. Never fear, though, there's a replay. So if you got the link via email, then you should be able to watch it later. And hopefully when it's recorded, it'll be better. Sorry for the issues. Okay, so this is a 1 to 2 week time frame here. So again, you will have to let the content manager know what they're going to work on. So they'll need to have some articles in the queue, but generally you'll be able to hire a couple new writers pretty quickly over the course of a couple days. Next, you have the same single content manager and you hire a couple more writers. So you're hiring 2 writers and the content manager is working through the content that the writers are writing and learning the process, right? So this, again, is another 1 to 2 weeks where you're adding 2 more writers. The content manager is getting faster and learning what they need to do. And they're understanding the process, that sort of thing. Phase 3. Now, this is where it gets interesting, or sorry, phase 4, this is where it gets interesting. This is where you could hire as many writers as you want to fill your content needs. And the key part here is you'll have only so much bandwidth for the content manager. So let's say the content manager can work for 10 hours a week. Well, that's great. We know that the content manager takes about 1 hour to work through one article. So if the content manager can work for 10 hours per week, that means if you have 5 writers, they'll be doing about 2 articles per week. You want to sort of match up the work that the writers are doing with the amount of work that the content manager is doing. At the best, you'll probably have, best case scenario, you'll have the writers writing a little bit faster than the content manager. What you don't want to have is the content manager sitting idle. You're paying them by the hour and you don't want them to just not have work to do. then they'll start looking for other jobs. So as long as you have like a little bit of a queue built up, I usually like to have a couple articles written ahead of time before the content manager is working, and then I'll match up the capacity, the bandwidth for each of the groups, right? So the writing group versus the content manager, and then you could figure out the right bandwidth. You will have to adjust a little bit. Maybe you figure out that the content manager is loving the job. They want to work more hours, and then you could hire more writers, right? You could hire more writers, or you could ask the writers to write a little bit more. Phase 5. Oh, and by the way, phase 4 is 1 to 2 weeks, but really it's as quickly as you want to grow, as quickly as you could hire the people. For phase 5, by the way, I'm going to pause here. Any questions? I'm talking fast, and I'm just going to turn off sharing. So just a quick pause. So phase 5, we've hired the team. It's growing. There's a lot of people on the team. Any questions out there about hiring up through phase 4 or anything like that? All right. Tim says it's all good. Salim says it's okay. All right. Jessica says, what information do you need to provide the writers with? Okay, cool. All right, nice. Good questions. Okay. Basically, I usually just tell the writers the title of the article, and then they have like some loose guidelines on how to write the stuff. So I give them a template. If it's your first time on, Jessica, check out Niche Site Project. There's a template for Amazon affiliate reviews, but basically it's that. Firman UK, how do you know how many hours the content manager has worked? So either through Upwork, there's a tool, a screenshot tool, or they log the hours manually. So they tell you, Arun, how many keywords that we need before starting this project? So you're asking a very specific question, not really. So I'll answer it, but you don't have enough context. About 25. All right. Tim says, are you pushing articles to editors? Yes. From writers to you, then from you to the content manager. Correct. Dustin says, what should your expected time input be at this stage? Maybe, and I'm going to make an assumption that you're asking about the number of hours that I'm spending on admin time, roughly one hour to an hour and a half per week. And then, how many keywords should we provide the writers for a single post? Totally depends on how you're creating your site. For me, it was 1 keyword per post per the keyword golden ratio. Wong says finding the writers is the main issue. Santiago, how many articles per week for each writer? However many they want to do. I prefer not to have writers doing more than like 1 per day, because I feel like the quality can go down, and most people don't want to write more than 1 per day. But whatever you want, you're the boss, right? You tell them however much you want. Gareth, so you hire 1 writer 1 week, and then 2 week 2, and then 3 week 4. Yes. Joe says, do you give the content manager access to WordPress? Yes. And I'll talk about that in just a moment too. Excellent questions. Thank you, everyone. And let's hop back to the phase 5, which is the last phase. I'll try and share. And can people see the screen there? Is that showing up? Can you see my screen? I don't, I'm having trouble seeing it. Huh. Yeah, just let me know in the chat. Can you see my screen? I may have to do something different here. And I'll try not to crash the web page here. Okay, I can see it now. So, okay, cool. So phase 5, this is, sorry. Basically, this is where you hire as many writers and content managers as you want. As I mentioned, I've hired up to about 12 writers and like 3 content managers. And for me, that worked out well. I mean, the reality is, even if the content manager, say, can work 40 hours a week, they can only work on one article at a time. So this is where you could really throttle and publish a tremendous amount of content that seems insane without going insane yourself. So, and basically, if you have 2 content managers working in parallel, say, for example, and a lot of Upwork folks want to work part-time, right? So if they're working, say, 20 hours a week, they're working 20 hours a week in parallel. And oftentimes that's going to be, greater than 40 hours that you're getting from one single person. Just in my experience, that's not always true. But in this is sort of, it's like high-tech factory work, if you will. So you're really like throttling it. So just keep in mind there's turnover in all these positions. So for various reasons, after you set up the team, you're going to have to hire more. All right. A writer's going to disappear. A writer's going to flake out. They just disappear sometimes, and that happens. So if you have the expectation that you're going to have some turnover, and by the way, this goes for all jobs, all companies everywhere, right? So even when I was a project manager and I had a team of 15 people, people quit, right? They're getting paid, 6 figures, and people quit because whatever, they don't like the job anymore. Something changed. They have to move. So it happens whether it's a freelance position or not. So don't get upset when people disappear. Just, it's part of the cost of doing business. So there is great flexibility in hiring freelancers. That's great, but you have to deal with the downside of that. All right, next, me saving 24,360 minutes in 2016. Basically, it was because of the content manager. So I took a step back and I thought about, where am I spending the most time? And what do I not like doing? That's a good way to figure out what to outsource, by the way. What do you not like doing? What takes a lot of time? So as a reference, it took me about an hour and a half to edit and draft a single blog post. And I thought I had to do that work myself because that was like the outward facing content. I felt like I couldn't teach someone how to do all the little steps and all the little things that I was doing. And I really just wanted to have control. I felt like I needed to have control over the content, over the little details. Where does the image go? Where does the link go? Where do I divide this paragraph? What happens when I make a new subheading? I want to make sure everything's right. Turns out I was a bottleneck in the process and I had to do something. I also hated doing that work and it took me a really long time. So quick little bit of math here. If it takes me an hour and a half to do this work and I'm going to publish 200 blog posts, that's going to take me like 3,000 hours, right? Am I doing it right? 300 hours, sorry, 300 hours. So it's, or no, that's right. Yeah. So it's going to take forever, 3,000 hours if it takes me an hour and a half, right? Whatever. It's hard to do math when a lot of people are watching, but the point is a lot of time. And basically the content manager does this. So I listed out the stuff that I was doing. And it turned out it wasn't that hard and it was just this stuff, right? So edit the article. So that is like the style guidelines, the general formatting, the structure, font, voice, like that style. And people have asked me for the style guidelines before. I could just tell you it's like 12-point font, Arial. It's just like the personal stuff that you want. So you don't need mine. You could just figure out whatever your style is. Or you could just Google style guidelines for web content, that kind of stuff. it's whatever you want. Don't think my way is the only way, right? As far as the voice, perhaps you prefer a certain type of voice or something like that. Additionally, from the edit point of view, the editor, or at the time when I was listing on my stuff, they would take care of grammar, spelling, stuff like that. When you're paying like $15 for an article, a lot of times a writer's not going to have time to make, a really awesome editing pass. So there's going to be some mistakes and the editor picks it up. I'm fine with that. Okay. The other details are the content manager uploads the content from Google Docs. I did everything in Google Docs. They draft it in WordPress, so they have access as an editor in WordPress. Not admin access, editor access. They add backlinks to the external sites that I want them to add them to. They add affiliate links so that the articles would have affiliate links. They find 1 to 3 relevant images, and they find one relevant video from YouTube. That's it. That's what they do. So it's this stuff that you could fit on one slide. Very simple. So quick, just to recap. You're going to grow slow. Don't grow faster than you should. If you're just starting your site, you can use ideas from what we've talked about, but you probably don't need to hire like 5 writers. If you try and hire 5 writers, you're going to go crazy. It's going to, be amazing when you find the writers at first, and then you're going to be inundated with questions and emails, and it's going to be a lot slower than you thought. So grow slow. Trust me on that. If you try and grow too fast, it's going to be an issue. The other part is when you hire people and you build your team, just understand there's going to be some turnover. People are going to flake out, and you just have to recover. If you get upset, if you get frustrated, it's not going to help. You just have to expect it. And a lot of times in life, really, just a life lesson here, when we get frustrated, when we get upset, it's because our expectations don't match up with reality. If you have more realistic expectations, then you're not going to be as disappointed. You'll generally be happier, right? So just a quick little example. If it takes me, 15 minutes on average to get to the mall, but in my head, I always think, hey, the fastest I can get to the mall is 10 minutes. And I always plan for 10 minutes, even though on average, it's 15 minutes. In the best case scenario, if 10 minutes never happens, if I always think that, I'm going to show up late everywhere. And I'm also going to be frustrated. I'm going to be running behind. I try to show up places like on time or early. So generally, if your expectations can match up closer with reality, hence, if you realize people are going to quit, people are going to flake out, or maybe they're not going to do the job perfect at first, and you coach them, you're going to be a little bit happier and you're going to be a little more successful in this endeavor. All right. So I see some questions piling up, so I'm going to get to those in a second. I do want to mention one thing. There's no actual real pitch. You can't buy anything in this workshop here. But next week, my premium course, 5-Figure Niche Site, comes out. So if you are attending this, you are indeed on my email list. You will get emails about the course next week. It will only be open for 5 days, Monday through Friday. That is the 15th through the 19th. So you'll only be able to enroll for that amount of time. It's not false scarcity. I actually have a lot of interaction with each of the students. So basically, I have to throttle it and make sure there's only a certain enrollment period so I can work with everyone as they're working through it at the same time. So this, skipped a slide there. So there's the product image there. Probably need to have a sexier one with newer images fixed up, but that's it right there. And The course was created with the principles, some of which I talked about today, but principles and techniques and strategies that work. I've done it on my own sites. I've taught other people how to do it. And many students have been through the course and, in fact, have made money pretty quickly. I have some very exciting testimonials that I've gotten in the last several weeks, actually the last several days, where people that enrolled in the previous session, they already were able to make some money over the retail season. Very unusual. That's not typical results, but some people were able to make sales over the retail season, which is super cool. All right. Q&A. Let's get to it. And I see some questions popped up and we'll answer them until we're done. All right. Somehow I have like two screens on here of myself, which is weird. Anyone else see that? I want to get rid of that. I'm the room owner. Okay. So just one. People just see one. Okay, cool. All right. So Yath says, we need to pay for images for the content manager. So if you want the content manager to, you have to pay for it, basically. If you want the content manager to get premium images and that they have to buy, then you have to pay for it. I typically have my writers or the content manager get images from Creative Commons. Tim says, adding backlinks to external sites, or those references or more sources, either one in both. So whatever is appropriate for the content. Sometimes, it's to competitors, right? Now I know a lot of people would not link to competitors, but I've tested it and tried it, and it's not the worst thing in the world. You could also link to, big websites like CNN, New York Times, whatever. Okay. John says, limited number of students for the course. Not necessarily, but that shouldn't have a bearing on anything. There's different packages, right? So there's a one-on-one package, and that's limited, right? Marcel says, sounds like you don't pick the products to review. Do you see any negative impact by letting the writer select the products? Nope. Again, this is a control thing. So at some point I thought I needed to pick it, but if you give guidelines for the writer, say, pick products that have 4-star ratings and that are, reasonably priced and that sort of thing, like whatever you want, or maybe you tell them pick cheap options or pick in this price range, but there shouldn't be an issue by letting it. Typically you'll get better results if you let people think, and if you give them guidelines and they make some decisions on their own. It's going to be way more interesting than if you spoon feed them. Dan says, write articles yourself is the best option. Sure. But I would say you have to look at the work that you want to do. The work that I wanted to do didn't involve me writing 200 articles to, 20,000 words of content. So it didn't include that. So Arun says, did the team really need to know they are part of a team? I don't know. I'm not sure. Can you rephrase your question? I'm not really sure what or why you're asking or why it helps. Ken says, how did I scale to find 200 keyword golden ratio terms? Slowly over time. I probably I hired someone to help me, right? So I hired someone to help me after I taught them the process. But basically, if you just found like 10 per day for 20 days, you're there. So just slowly over time, like everything, it was just a slow process. How do you know if you're building your site the right way? So that is hard to answer, because if you are asking the question, then it means you don't know the right way. Sorry, I've had a cough that I'm trying to get over. So if you don't know, then you wouldn't know. However, Jessica, I would say that I need a cough drop first. I have one handy here. Basically, you should find someone that you trust and you should follow their process. What you shouldn't do is find 5 people that you think you kind of trust and then do like 5 different little versions of what you're trying to do. That is going to be frustrating and you'll probably not end up in a good position. So you should probably pick one person that you trust that seems to be successful and then go from there. If you follow like 5 people before you understand what you're doing, you're going to end up like doing 5 different versions of something and it's not going to work. Furman, do I give writers sample content or articles or just the outline? Neither. I'd usually just give them the title. Dana says, are you referring to posting links on other sites to backlink or linking out to them? I hate the backlinking process. Do I have a resource to refer about the process? In this case, Dana, I'm referring to posting links on other sites, I'm linking out to other sites from your site. So this is all about the content on your own site, and the content manager is adding links for that. As far as the backlinking process, if you hate it, then probably not going to be as successful as if you embrace it, because it is, in my opinion, a necessary thing to do. I know other people like my friends at Income School, Jim and Ricky, they say, don't do any backlinking. They say you don't need to do backlinking. My belief, it's a little bit slower and you're going to reach an artificial ceiling. However, people are successful without backlinking. If you just embrace it, then you should be better off in the long run, right? Because a lot of people don't like it. And if it's a differentiator, then that's a good thing. As far as resources, yeah, I did a webinar like last week. If you go to my YouTube channel, just search for SEO for niche sites, you should find training on that. So Yath says niche marketing is all about creating small product review sites and ranking it in Google. No, I would disagree. There's no reason that it has to be a small product review site. It is a product review site and you rank in Google. Yeah. Furman, you're struggling to write your own articles after a promising start. You wrote 2,000 words, but now you're running dry. You need to look for a writer. Cool. Go for it. Geet Anch says, do you update the articles? Yes, sometimes. If yes, how often? Probably I will maybe have a look every 3 months or so, but I don't have a schedule. Mike says, would you only add product reviews or would you include blog articles that are focused on SEO? I would do both. And when you say blog articles focused on SEO, I assume you mean informational content, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, product reviews and the other stuff. Tim says, can you do a YouTube review of the products and then link back to your site? Yes. Kent says, do you have an outsourced process finding keywords in the training? Do you have that finding keywords in the training? I love to try. No, not really. But I have videos on the keyword golden ratio, so you could probably just tell someone to learn how to do it and see if they can do it. Sharon says, do you need 20 to 25 articles to start making money? No, you need like 10. Jessica says, should my posts be about reviews? Only be about reviews. You've been writing posts on different subjects. I'm sort of a mix of, it's sort of a blog, affiliate, review, best of mixture. A combination of content is a good thing to have. Marcel says, congrats on the 2017. Thanks. With the site making 70K, what's the percentage of KGR content versus the high volume keywords? I'm not sure exactly how much outreach and link building was done for the site. A decent amount, hard to answer. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. Sharon says, I can't seem to find keyword golden ratio keywords below 0.25. So Sharon, just keep looking. They are out there. Arun, you're thinking about Google Alerts and the keyword checker to Upwork. Okay. Yath says, can I make only one article and earn money if it's ranked on the first position of Google? Sure. Yeah, you could do that. I wouldn't recommend it. And logic would say, if you know how to do it with one article, you know how to do it again. So why just do one? If you could do it once, why don't you do it again? All right. What other questions do we have? I blew through the content there. That was actually pretty quick. Sabir says, for 1,500 to 2,000 words, how many keywords is good to apply here? Sabir, it depends on what you're trying to do with the content. So and you know what? I don't even look at content that way. So you can go after one keyword if you want, if you're doing keyword golden ratio stuff, or you could go after, 100 keywords. So you just have to think about what you're trying to do. And without the details of what you're trying to do, it's hard for me to answer just out of context. And if you're thinking about it that way, I would probably say you're thinking about it wrong. Rune says, when is the next batch starting? I don't know what that means. Apologies, you missed the start of the workshop. What software do you use to get the keyword golden ratio? Gareth, so I didn't go over that. That is a different topic for a different day. But the software that I use, one is Keyword Keg to get the keyword volume, or keywords everywhere, part of the same group. And then you have to run a advanced search in Google. So you just use the Google search. Gareth, I recommend you take a look, go to my channel, Google the keyword golden ratio. Oh, actually, there's a better link. Hold on. I'm going to paste this for you here. It sort of consolidates the videos, and Gareth, check out this page. It puts it together a little bit. There's like 3 videos there. The Furman, if you were aiming for 10 articles, how many would you write in the best of voice in general? I think probably 50-50. I'm not 100% sure what you're asking. Dustin says, how much money do you spend on content before you expect to see an ROI? I don't know. Maybe a couple $100, something like that. Dave says, how far do I plan ahead? How far do I plan a block of writing before starting the writers on articles? Usually when I first got started, so it varies, Dave. When I first got started, say I had 20 keywords, so 20 articles off the bat, that would take a couple hours to find maybe 20 keyword golden ratio terms. And then once I had a couple writers, that would take them a couple weeks to work. And then once I saw that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to publish more, I went ahead and essentially found like 180 other keywords, right? Over the course of a couple of weeks. The point is, it doesn't matter how fast you find them, as long as you're ahead of the writers. Zane says, how often do you start niche sites you're not an expert in? You're trying to finalize the topic and you realize your actual interest wouldn't be too profitable. I don't start that many niche sites, so almost never. But your question is really about doing something you're not an expert in. That's okay. It's okay if you're not an expert. It's good if you have some light interest at least, so you're interested. Sharon, see you later. Yath says, what's the best keyword density as per your assumption for a keyword golden ratio post? It's hard to answer that. I would suggest you don't use it more than twice. Tony says, how do I find keywords for my niche? You need to do keyword research. I did a video in the last couple of days on 3 places you could find keywords. You should check that out. Salim says, I prefer fixed price work. How you are working on hourly price. So basically, if you prefer to work on a fixed price deal, you're the boss. You could do it. You could set up the contract however you want. So personally, I did fixed bid situations for the writing, and then I paid the content manager by the hour. The reason why is because you never know how long it's going to take to edit the content. Maybe it's really long content. Maybe it's really short content. Maybe the content's not that good because the writer was unfamiliar with the topic or something. So from my perspective, I wanted to be fair and I wanted the content manager to work by the hour. But if you want to do it a different way, more power to you. Tim says, do you keep writers on one site or toss them articles for different sites and topics? Whatever I need at the time. So I have mixed it up before. The Furman says, you have a load of keywords for a blog, but you're trying to avoid it looking spammy by having too many best of and product related. Jessica says, if you don't do a niche site, what kind of site do you do? Can you rephrase your question? I'm not sure what you're getting at. Basically, whatever you want. So if you have like a software app or something, then it's a software site. Or if you want to have a membership site, then you do a membership site. So I'm not sure what you mean about a niche site versus anything else. Okay, and Jessica's clarification is, you said I don't do niche sites. Oh, no. I said I don't start new niche sites all the time. So some people, especially a lot of people that are just getting started, if we go back to my roller coaster, like if I if I have a suggestion, is for people to focus on like just one site at a time. So basically, if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to start 5 sites and they're all going to make $50 a month, you're forgetting about the overhead and all the pain in the ass of working on multiple sites at the same time. All right. Geet. I'll just say Geet. What's the conversion rate you usually see? So I'm not sure off the top of my head. I think it's something like 1 or 1.5% buy something. So from people visiting the site, it's like 1 to 1.5% buy something. John says, how important is a meta description? I don't think it's very important these days because Google seems to just pull whatever they want. So I used to put a meta description for everything because Google used to always pull the meta description, but now sometimes they'll put in other stuff from somewhere else on the page. So I don't do it anymore. Yef says, there are so many offers out there to promote. How do I choose the right ones for my audience and blog? You just have to figure it out. I don't know. You got to figure out like what your audience wants and test. Satish, how do you take RankBrain Google Core algo to how to optimize? I don't know. That I saw Brian Dean at Backlinko publish something this week on RankBrain, so I don't know. Any other questions on content or teams or anything like that? By the way, keep an eye out for the course next week. Again, I will be sharing some cool case studies and basically testimonials for people that have gone through the course. Yeah, Satish, so you've gone through Brian Dean's stuff. Cool. So you know more than me. I just skimmed a little bit. Arun says, how many internal links are okay for 1,000-word post? I'm not sure. I haven't tested like limits or anything, but I usually say it's good to have 2 to 5 links, internal links per post. Any other questions? And cool, we kept a lot of people on for a long time, so this is awesome. We still have like 57 people. Geet says, how many affiliate links are okay for a post? I don't know the exact number, but you can definitely get negative best SEO impact if you have too many affiliate links in your post. And basically, what I tend to do is put like one affiliate link for every like 250 to 300 words. Can you put more? Sure. But my argument is if you're trying to hit someone over the head with affiliate links, then maybe it's not the right kind of traffic. All right. And I'm told Tim has a question. Ever worry that writers or managers turn into competitors? No, I really don't. Do I make them sign NDAs? So basically what we're doing, like what I'm doing, is usually there's a lot of pieces you have to put together. So even if they know the keywords or even if I have given some writers access to the course just so they understand what I'm doing. And of course, I mean, it's like people that have worked with me for a long time. So basically, I'm not really worried about it because there's a lot of steps you have to do and there's a lot of moving pieces. Usually the writers don't have, I mean, they're just trying to write, they don't really know what the content's going for. And sometimes they'll ask questions and I'll just let them know. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question, Tim. And basically, I mean, a lot of times ideas are cheap and easy, right? I just told you so much information in this presentation. Hardly anyone's going to do it. Unfortunately, hardly anyone's going to do it. And as soon as it gets hard, a lot of people will be like, this is not quite going to work. It's hard to push through. And it's all about the execution. Some people will push through though. But it's all about the execution. The ideas are easy and simple and free in general. Jeff says, what's the best way to incorporate the keyword golden ratio in the title, in the body, in both? Correct, in both. Yath says, what makes content successful? Why don't you try and rephrase that better? Deepan says, what about the content strategy and average length? About 1,000 words. Covered that in the beginning, about 1,000 words. Yath says, I mean, what makes content good? How Do you know if a piece of content is doing well? It's getting traffic and people are spending time on it. What makes content good? Providing information for the user. I mean, it's, it's a dumb answer, but if the user is getting the information that they're looking for and it's engaging and interesting, they'll read it. They'll probably click to Amazon. You'll be able to see that stuff. Arun says you just posted an Upwork yesterday. Awesome, Arun. Tim is going to get his sock drawer in order. Salim says it's really great. Arun, you're definitely going to try to use the niche site template, of course. Cool. Yeah, and Tim mentions, it makes sense not to worry. Just do what you do well and spend time on energy on success instead of worrying. Yeah, and then the other part, a couple people actually, especially when I'm like launching the 5-figure niche site course, people will tell me, hey, it's on these free download sites. And that's true, but people are literally, a lot of it is fake, by the way. They don't have all the content, but the fact is, people pirate stuff all the time and it sucks. But people that would use pirated stuff, number one, they're not my customers anyway. They would never buy from me in the first place. But to worry about that stuff is a waste of my time. So usually I don't even pay attention to that. Tony says you love the scaling help. Thanks. Cool. You'll have to transfer it to your business. Okay. Awesome. Let me know how it goes. Dan says, change your articles. Do you lose ranking? If you change it, this is not going to be helpful. If you change it and Google doesn't like it for some reason, then yeah, you'll lose rankings. But if you change it and you say add content and improve it, usually it'll improve rankings. Nice, Tim. Marcel agreed. Derek Sivers has a great post on ideas versus execution. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? And Yath, I see your question on remarkable content. This goes back to the point of asking the same question over and over again. Pretty much covered it, so I'm not going to answer that. Sorry. Any other questions? Any unique questions that haven't been asked before? Yeah, good session today. Furman says, when would you provide the actual article title in Upwork? I probably wouldn't do that. Do you post something like the article for XX product comparison, 1,000 words? Do I post something like the article required? No, I usually don't. If you are on my email list, the first email that I send out has like a link to downloads. If you follow that link to downloads, all my content upgrades and stuff like that, there is a piece of, or one of the content upgrades, one of the lead magnets has like the job posting that I use. And I've used and refined that job posting over the past 4 years. It seems to work really well. I've literally hired dozens of people using it, and it provides the information that's needed. It attracts the right kind of writers and the right price point that I'm looking for. Tony says, you've seen some tools that rate the impact of your title. Do I have a recommended tool? No. I don't know that that would be very useful. Yeah, so I've heard of some tools too about like headlines, but most of the time, I don't do anything like that. I don't use many tools, although I do have a note to myself to make a video for SEO tools that I use. So, and then I was making a list of some of the tools. I was like, I need to come up with more tools to use, but I don't use that many tools. There were like a couple tools that I use often, and then the rest are just a very, very rare occasional usage. So Awesome. Any other questions? Any other questions out there? And by the way, I try and have like books next to me so I could like hold it up and say, "Hey, I'm reading this book." So I've mentioned it a couple times. This book by Dan Rome, called "Back of the Napkin," to make like simple drawings to sell ideas and solve problems. And it's interesting. And I think I need to draw more, simple images of like stuff that I'm working on. Furman says, do you use premium themes or page builders? I hate page builders. I don't use vanilla WordPress, but I just have a couple of themes that I use, and the theme doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter at all. Salim says, do I use any tools to measure the readability? Nope, I sure don't. Did I read cash advertising? No, but I think I've seen it around, but I didn't read it. All right. Cool. I think I covered all the questions. I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I will pause for a minute here while I drink some more water. I am reading Back of the Napkin, and I think, one of the things that I'm probably going to do is, I read a lot of books last year. I think like 45 or 50 or so. I started to not write them down, but towards the end of the year, but I read like way more books than I ever had, ever. And I may go back. And one thing I realized is I would read a book quickly and I'm thinking, oh, those are great points in there. Then I would read another book and I would just keep reading, but I wasn't implementing stuff as much as I should have. So I thought, hey, I'm going to read some books and then I'm going to implement. So when it came down to it, I thought, I'm reading because I want more knowledge. However, it's also, even more powerful to implement something. So if I say read the 4-hour work week and then I really worked on implementing that, but I only read that one book, that would be even more powerful than if I read like 200 books and didn't do anything from any of them because I was just worried about reading. So my thought was, I'm going to go back and reread books that I found compelling, and I'm really going to take, one idea and like figure out how to work on that thing. So, okay. Okay. So I see some other questions. Dave says, do I have the content manager make the comparison tables? No, I typically don't, just because I don't want to deal with the training. So a lot of posts may not have tables, but that would just be a training issue. And I just wanted to do things faster. Tony says, do I use Thrive themes? No, I actually actively dislike Thrive themes. I find it bloated. There's too many options. It's hard to use. The support's bad. It's probably enough. Nikhil, what's my link building strategy? In a simple way, it is blog commenting and guest posting. Furman, you're thinking about going simple too. Okay, great. Tim says that's a lot of books. Yep. And the thing is, with reading, if you rewind in between like actually before 2013 or so, I probably only read like 1 to 2 books per year, or occasionally, I know a lot of people are new that are on here. I'm big into homebrewing beer. I love beer. I'm actually a high-ranking beer judge. And the only other stuff that I read from roughly 2007 up to about 2012 was beer books. So I probably have more beer books and brewing books, deep, very dense reading. I have more beer books than I have business books. It's probably getting close to switching over to business books, but those were the books that I read because I was interested in that stuff. And the trick with reading is there's no trick. it just takes time. You have to make it a priority. You have to just put time into it. There's no shortcut. I have gotten faster at reading, but it was only through many, many hours, day after day of reading. But you literally just have to schedule the time and say, hey, I'm going to read like 45 minutes. And yeah, it's usually very, very enjoyable once you get into it. But if you're in a rush, if you don't have time, if you just try and read a couple pages and not like full chapters or something like that, that was the issue I had. I would read 2 pages. It would take me like a week to read a chapter. I would fall asleep. It wasn't a priority. So, okay. Okay. Dan says Income School says not to do blog commenting. They say it doesn't work. Okay. In their model, they don't do it. In my model, I do it. Those guys are great, but we have a different outlook on link building, and I think it's a little more necessary than they do. And yep. Yeah, so that's my stand on it. Tony says, you just bought Thrive themes. What do I recommend instead? You know what? I'm not big on themes. I know my buddy Alex at WP Eagle, he is big into like Divi and I think maybe like X theme. Honestly, I don't know anything about him. My like Thrive can be okay if you keep it lean. If you don't use all their options, but the problem comes in when you hear people that are pushing Thrive and they are affiliates and they tell you need to have all this formatting and all this extra stuff. It just makes your page load really, really slowly. And let's see, any other? Yep, and Arun, yeah, I do like beer. I'm a native English speaker. I'm from the US. Dan says, what do I think about Vada? You know what? I think I may have used that once or twice. And you know what? I'm just bad with themes. I maybe should do a couple just videos of teardowns. Yeah, I think Genesis Studio Press is good. I've seen that quite a bit. My advice is to find a premium theme that you like how it looks and just use that one everywhere. And I don't like page builders for normal sites. You really just want to present the content. You want the theme to stay out of the way. My first site, I use WordPress 2012. I think you could build a nice looking site if you just use a WordPress version. I highly recommend checking out some of the free themes from Automatic. Automatic is the basically the parent company of WordPress. So you end up with a well-designed, fast loading with usually good options. And there's, you know, several free themes from Automatic. But yeah, I should probably look more into themes because a ton of people ask me about the themes. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's about everything else. As long as your theme looks generally okay, it's fine. What you don't want is a theme that's going to slow you down, right? So one reason Thrive's a little clunky is there's so many options. The more options you have, the more things you're going to be fiddling around with. That slows you down. You're much better off on you're much better off just focusing on keywords and content and everything else. And Yath says, you don't use Facebook anymore. You've texted me on Messenger. Look, I don't like getting messages from people on Facebook. I pretty much reserve Facebook for family and friends. Yeah, I saw your question in there. And like I told you, you were asking the same question in like 3 or 4 places. I don't like being stalked on the internet. So I deleted your message because I didn't want you to contact me on Messenger. Nothing personal. But yeah, just you kept asking the same question and not cool. Yeah, Furman says, Yath is hunting me down. Arun, privacy is a must. And the thing is, I have hundreds of Facebook requests, and I've talked about it before. People tried to give me some advice. I have my like public figure persona and profile out there, and I also have like a Facebook group and I have a Facebook page, but I still have like hundreds of people that are trying to be my friend, and basically I don't know what to do with it. At some point I may just accept everyone as friends and then treat it as a marketing channel, and my friends will think I'm crazy. Yeah. Okay. Any other actual questions about what we talked about today? All right, Yath. If you really want the Facebook group, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Any other questions out there? All right. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget, tomorrow I do a Fridays. I do a what do you call it? A live stream, a Q&A. 10 a.m. same time, same place. People took notes. Very cool. Oh yeah, and Gareth, the course details are at 5-Figure Niche Site. I will place a link. And actually, you won't find any information right there. It's just a landing page currently. But next Monday, when enrollment actually opens, that is where you'll be able to learn more. There's all the details in there. But currently, there's nothing there. Just on Monday, it'll be live and all that stuff. So thanks, everyone. Really appreciate you hopping on. I'm out of here. We'll see you tomorrow.